What's up, everybody? Lefty here, Party Science Vlog. Today I get to sit down with Sabbor Sheik, the one and only realtor that Rob talked about from Toro Construction that I did a vlog a few episodes ago. He spoke so highly of him, so I had to come here and pick his brain. So Sabbor, thank you so much for giving me your time today.
Thanks for having me.
So I guess we can kind of start with what Rob had told me to kind of transition from there, and then we'll get to some of the questions I sent you. But he told me you guys did real estate together.
Yes.
And that was like the beginning of like his bigger entrepreneurial steps when it came to doing stuff for himself. So how did that happen for you guys?
Dang, we went to high school together, and he reached out, and I helped sell his primary residence. And, we kind of rekindled our friendship there. And man, the guy's a go-getter. He kind of launched Patriot Realty, I think it was, at the time. And this guy's like, hey man, we've got $100,000, a collection of us 4 guys, we've got $100,000, we're gonna start flipping properties. And I'm like, oh, awesome, man, this is great, go for it. And then next thing you know, he sends me a list of 25 homes. And he's like, hey, can you vet these, see if it's a good deal, how much money? And I'm like, no, dude, I don't wanna do this, right? But sure enough, he kind of learned, hey, I've got to know a lot of realtors. But that was kind of his in. And it wasn't until later, 2021, where he came across a property. And he was like, hey, do you think this is a good opportunity? And it was essentially a teardown, right? Land. And I was like, man, dude, I would do this with you. And he's like, let's do it together.
Nice.
And so then there it was, limited experience, right? I mean, I've got a real estate background. He's launched a construction company. But dude, things can go south quick, right? We're talking about big bucks, big money. So we kind of started not knowing if we would even make a profit, right? And it was like, let's go, it'll be a great learning experience. So thankfully we did. We made some mistakes along the way for sure that we both kind of learned from.
Right.
But that was kind of how we rekindled that, yeah.
Okay. So you were already doing real estate at that time when he talked to you about it?
Yeah, for sure. I started 2011, I was 25 years old, and it was like, okay, here's my chance. We had a family business, we kind of sold it, wrapped it up, mom had an injury, and I was stuck between these 4 walls, and it was like, man, dude, if you're gonna do it, now's the time. So by that time, definitely had some solid experience, market value, kind of a number to work backwards from, right? Because if you can work backwards from a number, remove how much is the acquisition cost, well, it kind of leaves you your profit and construction costs, right? So you kind of have an idea. And for sure, for what we took on there in 2021, you had to have some experience for sure.
Okay. So real quick, I just want to hear a little bit about the family business, because I grew up in a family business.
Yeah.
And I didn't get paid anything. I didn't get nothing. My dad just looked at me and be like, you like the roof over your head? That's what you're getting paid. So
it's not.
Tell me what you feel like you learned in the family business that when you felt like your mom and, it got sold.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that? And then what motivated you to get into the real estate? Out of all things you could have done, how did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, listen, when I look back at the family business, for me, it's a maturity factor. I quite wasn't ready for the opportunity. And, it just kind of worked out.
So that was late teens you're talking about, because you were 21 by the time you left into real estate, is what you're saying.
Well, I was 25.
Oh, 25.
So there you go. We launched that maybe 2008, something like that. So I was, early 20s, kind of floundering a little bit. It was always our dream. My mom kind of rose through the ranks, was general manager of a few Dunkin' Donuts, and she always wanted to open her own business. So it was a specialty meat market, all right? It was in Malden, so a lot of folks will drive by it now. It's a car lot, okay? But, we acquired it, obviously with the appropriate lease, and built it out to our specs. Specialty meat market, we did sandwiches, we did, South Asian grocery, that sort of thing. But dude, I was unhappy. I was unhappy. So just to answer your question, if there's something that I learned, it was like, man, dude, if you're going to start your own business, you got to be passionate about it. It can't be someone else's dream. Yeah, at the end of the day.
Well said on that one.
Yeah, and so then just kind of why and how I got into real estate. I used to be in car sales. I did well. I enjoyed it. I'm kind of a natural salesman, right? By the way, there's nothing like a really good salesperson.
Yes.
Someone who identifies your needs, addresses your concerns. No one likes being sold to.
Yes.
Is that fair? So I'm not talking about that, right? I'm talking about good salespeople. So
I love sales.
Yeah.
I used to do door-to-door sales. I used to do a bunch of different sales.
Man,
So I'm a fan.
Brave soul is what you are, man. Brave soul. I asked one customer a specific question. I said, I kind of set myself up for this. I said, don't you trust me? And they said, no, you're a car salesman.
Yeah.
And that's when I knew I was like, I'm in the wrong profession here because I do want that trust. I feel like I deserve that trust from a client, a customer. So I just kind of gravitated towards real estate in the back of my mind as being something as a potential outlet. So opportunity presented itself, 2010, somewhere in there to go get licensed. I took that opportunity. My dad means well. He said, I said, hey Dad, I'm gonna try real estate. And I had a daughter at the time. I'm like 22, 23, 24, and I do have my first child. And he said, hey, listen, I talked to the manager at the gas station. He's gonna give you a job as a manager. Just shut up and get down there and get to work, right? And listen, he meant well, because he's a hard worker, and
Sure.
he gave us a head start for sure, right, around these parts. I mean, he was successful in his own right. But I use that as motivation, obviously, right?
Of course.
And it was never to prove him wrong, and he's now my biggest fan, right? He's so proud. So it kind of comes around full circle, man. If you're passionate about something, you see an opportunity, a window, you got to go for it.
Right.
Yeah.
So tell me how that felt, because I remember when I told my family I was going to do sales, it's like they're supportive, but they're kind of like, like it's not like a go get 'em.
Yeah.
It's more like a go try it and we'll see you in a
Yeah.
few months after you kind of hit the ground, like hit face first. So what was it like making your first sale and being able to go back to them and talk to them about it?
Dude, I became licensed and joined an office in March 2011. My first sale closed in December of that year, okay? And it was a total gift from God. Like, hey man, I'm gonna do you a solid, so you stay in this business, right? Sort of thing. I don't really know their reaction. I think excited, scared for me, because again, I've got my young family started, right? Married with a child. But I did have a little side gig. If I could say that I cheated a little bit, it was that I had a side gig that created some cash that kind of got me through that initial, what was going to be just, uncertainty. But at the same time, man, I also didn't flourish because of it, right? Because I had something to fall back on.
Sure. Yeah.
So I know Rob talked about that, a little bit when he cut the cord, with
Yeah.
the government job. And
Yeah.
I sort of kind of had a moment like that as well, which we can get into later. But I don't know. Overall, I think they certainly wanted me to succeed, right? Yeah.
So it takes you almost 9 months to get your first sale. Now, after that sale, did you believe you could make it, or like what was your thought? Because you're saying you felt like it was a gift from God,
Yeah.
So like, well, how much longer to the second sale, and then how
Yeah.
did you stay focused to continue to do sales?
Yeah, I mean, I met the right person at the right time. Right when I got into real estate, there was this coaching company. I signed up for it, and my broker fired me 2 months in. Called me into his office. He goes, you know what, dude, leave your license here. I know you got to hang it. You haven't done anything. I don't see you around the office. I don't know what you're doing. Go try something else. Goodbye. Right? Little wake-up call, little kick in the ass.
Yeah, definitely.
Which is what he was doing, Lawrence. So the next morning, guess who was in his office waiting for him? That was me. And, I looked him in the eye and I said, hey, listen, I want to apologize to you. You saw something in me. You gave me a chance. I'm going to show up and I'm going to give this. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, right, I put a home under contract, right?
Nice.
Now, that home never closed, okay? That deal was destined to fail from the very beginning. But that second year, 7 sales. Year 3, 11 sales. Year 4, 8 sales. And I am upset, Lawrence. I'm upset with myself. So much so that year 5, I cut the cord with the part-time job. I sell 16 homes. My income quadruples. And I'm like, okay, here we go. But what's not seen in those years is I still had a coach. And I kept to the system. There was very organic farming style. Take care of the people that you know. Right? Everything is all around you that you need. You don't have to go looking for it. So I really stayed faithful to the system. And the dam burst.
So you start off hitting single digits, you get to double digits, you have a bad, let's say, following year where you get back to 8.
Yeah.
Then you cut that part-time job. When you cut the part-time job, was it exciting? Were you nervous? Because like obviously the next year you do well, you 16, and then you continue to grow. What was it like leaving the part-time job and leaving that security?
Yeah, it happened naturally, for sure. It was that I started to become too busy for it, Lawrence. And you realize that the real estate, not only opportunities, but the grind and the work was kind of dominating the calendar. So it happened naturally, and it was certainly on my mind for 6 to 12 months before it happened, right? Did not happen overnight. I did not wake up with a shot in the arm and say, yeah, it's go time. So just, again, real organic, you know, you got to listen to yourself. You got to trust your gut. The timing was right. I never looked back.
Nice.
Yeah.
What did your wife and your kids feel? I mean, obviously your kids were little, so maybe they didn't have so much to say, but when you left that security net, you were obviously making some money because you were making house sales. Was she, go get it? Was she, are you sure? Like, what was her thought behind it when it came to you leaving that job?
Yeah, I mean, she was the one pushing me forward.
Okay.
Right?
Nice.
Because it was, hey, we're leaving some income on the table, but your mind is scattered. You know, if I can go back and do things a little bit differently, I think it would have been just being so much more intentional with my family, the time I spent with them. I mean, it was there. You know, if you're a high achiever or a high performer, eventually you're going to come across a book or a seminar that says, make sure you take care of your family. Right?
Of course, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And so that is an art in it of itself that just continues to grow as you age, right, man? Right, Lawrence? So,
absolutely.
So she was all about it. Yeah, my biggest supporter in that, actually.
Nice, nice. So how did it feel after you left and you hit those 16 sales the following year? Like, what did it make you think about the business, like your goals? Like, how did it all develop from that point?
Yeah, I think, you know, your focus sharpens because you are now standing on the ledge, okay? And if you get pushed off, it hurts, you know, going backwards. So for myself, I think it was rededication and commitment to working the system, right, of how I generate business in real estate. So the mind became a little clearer, a little sharper. Yeah.
Do you think the business coach you had played a huge role, or do you feel like they just kept you accountable?
No, I would say they played a huge role, Lawrence, because, you know, that person's growing with you alongside. And oh, by the way, we had a cheat manual. There is this heritage profile. It was almost exclusively used by the CIA until this coaching company bought that technology from them, okay? You can look it up and you can get a profile done for yourself. You don't have to be a realtor. They do these for individuals. Heritage profile. So she knew exactly who I was, what got me going, what my natural gifts and abilities were. So it was a coaching manual, right? And we quickly found out that the way I would do the work, that 50% of the realtors don't want to do, Lawrence. It's the lead generation. Okay? Calls, go see people, take people out to lunch. And, you know, so for myself, we found out that I like to throw parties. That was my thing. It was back up against the wall, no way out. Because when you drop those save the date cards in the mailbox, there's no going back, brother. Right? This is not your niece's bar mitzvah. This is not something that someone has to go to, right? To pick up the phone and say, hey, listen, I'm having a little get together. It's for my clients and my family. I'd love for you to be there. Here's what's going on. And then to follow up and then hope they show. Yeah. So we quickly found out that was kind of my speed, sprint, right? And I would have these spurts of 4 to 6 weeks where I send out this save the day card and it's like, hey, I don't want to party alone. So in order for people to show, I got to do the work, right? And engage with people and ask them to come out. So I do 3-4 of those a year and have a lot of fun with them. And it's my way of keeping in touch with past clients. That discovery process, right? For my coach to say, okay, dude, here's how you're wired. We're going to lean into it. Yeah.
Okay. What made you decide to throw the first party?
You know, you can't have a coach and you can't belong to this coaching company without a little bit of courage. They're going to push you. So I was scared. It was called Picnic in the Park.
Okay.
I had a Dilboy Stadium field, right, West Somerville. And man, dude, she said, hey, what would a party look like? And I just started writing it down and I started drawing. And I was like, oh, well, I'd have a 50-foot tent and I'd have tables and chairs and we'd play musical chairs. And I would have my friend who has a custom shirt company, right? Shirt making company, HD Customs, now known as Print Plug. You can find him on IG. He made the shirts, blue shirt with a cloud. And I'm gonna rent a bunch of stuff and I'm gonna have someone making balloon animals and I'm gonna have someone doing face paint. And you know what? Why not have a DJ? And I'm gonna have the food, catered, sandwiches, and I'm gonna have a bunch of lawn games. And that's exactly what we did, right? It cost me $4,000, my money, right? No one else is showing up. Showed up at 6 a.m. I had a little bit of help. Party rental came by, dropped off all the goods. And I had the camera around the neck. I was doing it, right? I forgot to do my hair that morning, Lawrence. I was going so crazy. But dude, everyone had a great time. Everyone had a great time. That was my first one. And I wrote in my journal what I enjoyed about it, what went well. And I'm probably up to 25 of them now at this point. I've become a party pro.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So, did you have so many people that had confirmed for the event that you were sure it was going to be a success, or like how were the nerves up until people started showing up?
No, I mean, listen, the day of the party, like it's go time, right? You have so much going on and you're just trying to get through the day, quite honestly. And I was certainly disorganized and, panic stricken, so to speak. But what I really learned was a few people didn't show up and I was like offended or upset. And now, having done 25 of these, what I've realized is, listen, in the business, it's everything leading up to the party that's most important. I got what I wanted, right? I connected with people. And so the day of the party, dude, it's party time. So I don't take anything personally anymore. It's all good. Get a bunch of those messages on the day of the party, which is like, hey, sorry I couldn't make it, or hey, sorry something came up, and it's all good. So, but I have learned the numbers. Yeah, it's like X amount RSVP and X amount will show up, and it's amazing how consistent those numbers are.
Yeah, you get the ratios down.
There you go.
Yeah, you get we used to do. So I used to do network marketing. That was the first thing I got involved in, and it was amazing to watch because we had this concept called bring the ice.
Okay.
If you wanted to lock someone down, you'd be like, hey, listen, I'm gonna get the drinks. Can you just bring the ice for the party?
I like that.
Yeah. So that was like our thing. So all of a sudden, like 10 people would show up and they'd all have bags of ice for the party. And that was kind of like how we locked it. And we realized after a while, there's only so many people that will show up from it. Yes. So going through the ratios.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So now it's a staple in your business. Since that moment, what other little things have you picked up, or maybe major things that you've picked up that help close someone to show up to your event?
Oh, geez. Well, again, right? It's for them. I think in hosting these, it's part of my value add to say, hey, I'm not going anywhere. After you sell or buy your home, I have a commitment to keeping in touch with you, right? And I think people really appreciate that. Furthermore, I have a network of folks that people are going to be able to tap into. So, Lawrence, it's for them, right? It's not about me, it's for them. When I give them a gift, I don't have any branding on it in those events. It's for them. So it's a way for me to say thank you. So it's all good, right? And you have the regulars that show, and for some people, it's not their thing. And I understand. So I think at this point here, really mature approach to say, I'm gonna do a variety of things. I hope you come. Let's have some fun. And if it's not your thing, it's all good. So,
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What was it like to get the first referral from that party, that first party?
Yeah. Well, it happened at the party, right? Which was super exciting. And it was like, man, this thing works. And where it's gone to now, Lawrence, is it's not so much about getting the referral. Like, yes, it is. But it's this compound effect. I don't know now which one did it, right? Because it's not going to be immediate. Where someone says, hey, you know what, I'm starting to think about selling. And then, I log that and say, hey, this person's in the incubator, they may decide. And by the way, these are all my people. These are all people who have bought and sold with me. These are all people I know. And I'm sure I might say, hey, bring a friend, and I meet someone new. But I've got a pretty good relationship with these folks now, right? On a little bit of a deep level. So we can be very real with one another. My job is to track referrals, right, in my CRM. And The goal is always somewhere between 60 and 80 referrals. It's somewhat ambitious, but it is amazing to me, man, at the end of the year where you can get to 40 or 50 and you know that you caused it, you were very intentional, and you tracked. I mean, there's a lot of power in that, you know?
Do you find tracking has been a key source to being able to continue to follow up on the referrals? Or like, what about tracking? Because you've mentioned it a few times now where
Okay.
you're like, I made sure I paid attention, I tracked it, things
Yeah.
like that. Like, was that something you always did? Or like, what sparked it for you to focus on tracking it?
Yeah, I suppose twofold, right? Number one, maybe it's part of your personality. So for me, it showed up in a lot of areas of my life even before real estate, right? I kind of like to track. But so then for the coach, she was like, oh, this is awesome. Because if you can't track, you can't go, right? If you don't know where you've been. So you got to create a ratio. Hey, I talked to 100 people and I got 1 referral, but I need 5 referrals to close 1 transaction. Then you better talk to 500 people. See, I could predict your success with numbers. And so in order to improve those numbers and ratios, you got to track. So I now know that I need to generate 3 referrals to close 1. And I get 1 referral for every 8 contacts. So I know that off the top of my head now because I've tracked for so long. So I think the tracking piece, you got to try to build a predictable business in an unpredictable career choice. Real estate is unpredictable. If you could take one thing away that my wife does not like, it's like, hey, could you just get like a regular paycheck like every 2 weeks, right? It's like, no, that's not the way this business works, right? So that model, tracking, all that, it's designed to help you build predictability.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is there a specific house that or sale that you've made that when you think about what you've done so far that sits with you? Like, is there a specific moment where you sold the home to a family or a friend that you're like, this is why I do it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, there's so many stories, right? And at this point now, I've sold over 400 homes, and each one's got its own story. You know, just this past year, purchased my own home. That was
Congrats.
kind of special.
Nice.
Okay, that was special. It's right across the street from Mom's house, right? It just kind of happened. It came together, which was amazing. But on the client's side, you know, it's always more fun helping buyers. Because those folks, they get teary-eyed. You know, the closings are special, and you build a connection and a bond with people. Man, if I had to choose one off the top of my head, you know, my gosh. Again, it's like these single-family homes. You know, here's a family, 5% down, tough in a market like this, right? They've got their 2 kids, and Mama Bear's pregnant. And we're trying to get them a house, and it's competitive, and what do? And we can't compete with some of these cash buyers and 20% down and whatever else. Well, I pull out some pretty aggressive strategies. They're scary. I have to make them look better than they are, right, on paper. And it's a couple of weeks of being uneasy and restless. You lose a little bit of sleep, dare I say. I mean, if I went in depth on what I do, I might be sued for malpractice, in all honesty. And you know, on the other side, they're so grateful. You know, they say, hey, we're so glad we followed your advice. Yeah, it was scary, but we got the outcome with very little after effect. And so, but I think, you know, these families with their young children, whatever, buying single family homes, man, it's a lot of fun.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So you go through this process where you've seen yourself, now you can kind of look back at the day where the family business shut down. You got to go on your own. You did the car dealership thing. You're doing the real estate thing.
Yeah.
Do you view this like, what's your 2025 goal? Like now that you've achieved so much and you've gotten to this point where it's almost like a system for yourself, even though it's an unpredictable business, you've seemed to put the system together. What are your goals now kind of moving forward for it?
Yeah, you know, really interesting. In 2022, right? Market's changing, right? We're going to war across the ocean, and there's a little bit of uncertainty. It was get back to the basics. That was the theme from coaching. That, hey, there's going to be less to go around, right? Here comes the recession. Get back to the basics. So I think there's been an emphasis on whatever you've been doing, do it harder. Now's actually the time to go. It's not the time to slow down. Invest in your business and in yourself. That message was so clear from the coaching company that it really gave us, their members, a leg up, because a lot of folks were cutting back. So as a family and whatever else, yeah, you need to cut back, but not on the business side. You've got to put in a little more strategically, okay? So that's one piece. But I would say, these goals here for 2025, Lawrence, if I'm being honest, I'm probably a little bit overextended on the financial side. We bought our first home in 2022, and my wife said, I don't want to move in. It was 1.5 miles away, 1.5 miles, and we said, too far, Lawrence. And it was grandma's house. That thing needed everything. So we really just kind of went balls to the wall, acquired it, renovated it, rented it, got to the point where we were able to pull out a little bit of cash for this opportunity that came up. So, I'm not trying to be any kind of like real estate mogul or anything like that. I can certainly see myself owning 4 or 5 buildings by the time I retire. But it's been go, go, go these last 24 months. So for me, 2025 is going to be a year of recovery. Hey, do the business. You got to do the business. Life is better with a little more income. Do the business. All right. Get back some reserves. Really important for me in 2025, Lawrence. 6 months personal reserves. 3 months business reserves. I'm in the process of setting up an S corporation for my practice. And so feeling like I own a small business, which is absolutely what it is. So letting go of the sole proprietorship, if you will, and the heavy $15,000 self-employed tax. So that's going to be fantastic. So I think for myself, as I wrote my goals, absolutely, it's income, it's the deals, and it's being very methodical about how I move those finances around, and so that I'd love to take my family on a pilgrimage to Mecca. That was supposed to be this past December, and I said, Mom, you know what, it's just not the right time. We overextended on the renovation of this home. We got to catch up on some bills. It doesn't feel right. Because she wanted to go, and she said, I'll pay for it. I said, it just doesn't feel right. So the goal is to do what I got to do all year, work hard. I go to this personal development seminar each May. I've been going for the last 10 years, and I've been going to seminars for the last, as long as my real estate career has been present. Yeah, used to be 2 a year, then I got up to 4 a year, and these are big bucks, right? This one is $3,000 for the event, maybe another couple grand for the hotel and flight and whatever else, and 4 days right in the middle of my spring market. I'm going to choose not to go this year. I'm going to take that money, I'm going to allocate it where it needs to go, because I've got this real commitment to just catching up on the financial side and getting back some of my inner peace. So the home is a blessing. It's a great place each night, but that inner peace, knowing that we have some security in the bank, that's what I'm after this year.
Okay. I'm just gonna stick on the topic of development for a second, because I'm a big audio person.
Yeah.
I'm always on the road, so
yes.
I find like that's my main way of just feeling like I'm getting my lessons in terms of like how to get ahead. So what is the first development book you've read or audiobook or whatever it was? And then what do you do on a regular basis to feel like you're moving yourself forward on not so much the business as much as like building your mentality and your focus?
Yeah, Lawrence, it's a great question. And I think what you just referred to is Automobile University. Yes?
Yes.
The hands are busy, but the mind is free. Okay? This is an easy one. Okay? First name that comes to my mind, Jim Rohn.
I love Jim Rohn.
Okay? R-O-H-N. And something about how simplistic he comes across, it really resonates with me, and how he just, listen, life is like the seasons.
Yes.
And his challenge to succeed 4 CD set, I've listened to over 100 times. I can quote it. I could probably record it right now on the fly. Okay? One of the questions that maybe we were going to discuss was just, hey, what's the best piece of advice that you got, right? And 2 things jump out for me from Jim Rohn that I have adopted as my own, because also they're part of my personality. When something speaks to you, there's a reason. Stop and take a moment, right? There's probably some gift or some answer in that. Always do more than you get paid for to make an investment in your future. That is so true. That is so true. And always leave things better than you found them. Yeah? And this could even, you want to start this habit. You want to know how I started that habit? I used to go into Dunkin' Donuts, and what do you see around the area where the straws are and the napkins are? Yeah, right next to the trash recycling. You know, little bits of the cellophane for the straws, and maybe some sugar. And you know what I used to do? I used to just clean the whole area up, right? Unprompted. And every once in a while, I'd catch someone looking out the side of the eye, like, what the hell is this guy doing? And it was just like in my mind, I was like, well, leave things better than you found them. And then that carries over like a disease in other areas. So 2 awesome pieces of advice that I got from Jim Rohn that really resonated with me, that I carry with me at home, in my real estate practice, whatever may have you. So Jim Rohn, Challenge to Succeed. I would highly recommend it really to anybody. But if something sounds and looks good, you don't need to go on to the next, man. Listen to it over and over and over again.
I agree. I have a certain couple of audiobooks that I always go back to just to remember the principles of them, to keep them at my core.
There you go.
So,
there you go.
And Jim Rohn is definitely, I haven't listened to him in a while, but he was the first motivational speaker I listened to.
Sure, okay.
So I agree. It was him, Les Brown,
There you
like
go.
that whole like
There you
era,
go. Yes.
Brian Tracy,
Yes.
like that whole era.
Dude, they're all awesome. All of them. Yeah, all the above. Awesome.
Yeah. So you're always focusing on developing. You're focusing on reserving the capital this year to help it set the foundation. So you're going to be doing a little less of the $3,000 seminars and things like that.
Yeah.
So what do you think the biggest key is going to be to get you ahead this year with that reserving? Like, what do you do with that reserve?
Yeah. Lawrence, I've never had more clarity, than right now in my life. I'm 38 years old, okay? Been in real estate now, coming up on 14 years, all right? Got 3 kids, 16, 13, 8, and I've been married for close to 20 years.
Congrats on that.
Okay, thank you so much. And I am 5 months alcohol-free.
5 months what?
Alcohol-free.
Congrats on that, man.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Okay? And so to answer your question, 2025 is not only to recoup, right, on the financial side and get a little stability and whatever else, and it's to continue to stay alcohol-free. I think if I can do that, that is my number 1 goal for 2025. Okay, I would say just like most folks, maybe it starts with just casual and, I'm just with the friends, or it's maybe just, on outings. And, I think what I've appreciated most about it is, how I speak to my family. I've got a lot more patience. I'm not short. I'm not, responsive or reactive, and really enjoying how my relationships are flourishing. So again, this is not a knock on anyone. It's just for myself. I could no longer live with it, right? I got to the point where it was wreaking havoc in my days and weeks. So a lot of folks do it for a lot of different reasons. I see this fad coming on where it's kind of like the new, these non-alcoholic beverages or whatever else. I might be getting off topic here now from your original question, but man, dude, that's at the top of the goal list. And this is why the clarity with, I'm going to skip the seminar this year, because I am a real estate, a personal development junkie. I have been. And it was like, how many times do I need to hear someone to tell me to do this over and over again? Now that I've gotten the space, and by the way, I'm conquering some demons, because I just went to one of those seminars, and it was my first one alcohol-free in 10 years. That was this past September. I took that trip with the guys to Foxwoods. Guess what? I had fun and I didn't need to drink. So I'm gonna have a lot of firsts, right? Just went through my first holiday season, holiday parties, and chose to remain alcohol-free. So this alcohol-free lifestyle, I'm trying it on for size. I've made a commitment to a year. I'm going for it, man.
Nice. I want to stay on that topic for a
Okay,
second.
sure.
'Cause I'm a fan of seeing people reach a breaking point on a certain thing and then realize they need to let it go.
Yeah.
Or basically control it, realize how to properly control it so that
Sure.
they feel like they're them and
Yeah.
not that. So what was the first day/week like when you decide? Like
Yeah.
your emotions, your family, like what are they seeing and what are you feeling?
Yeah, for sure. And obviously we're going down this personal path, right? And I'll share what I can, but I will tell you that it was after my birthday in July, and I'm just tired. unhappy and disgusted. I'd use that word. And I knew I had to do something, Lawrence. If I chose to do nothing, then it was going to be more of the same. And I was searching. And, there was this 30-day no alcohol challenge that I did a few years back successfully. And this past year, I almost unsubscribed from their emails, right? And I moved the mouse over it, and then I moved the mouse away. And I was like, just let it come. Just let it come to your inbox. And sure enough, I'm clearing out my email, which I like to do on a regular basis, and there was the email. And it said, hey, we're starting this program, 90 days for entrepreneurs, and blah, 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 blah. And I responded, and I didn't hear back from them in like a few hours, and then I responded again, and I took the call. And they said, hey, we'd like your wife to be on that call. I said, great, no problem. And she was on the call. Now, I'm like, what is this going to cost? And, I'm like, and we're right in the middle of this home renovation, right? We just bought the home, and we just got the news that, hey, your renovation is not going to be $80,000. It's going to be closer to $200,000. I mean, I'm talking about blowing the top off, right? This place was disgusting. I couldn't save anything. And we're on this call, and I'm like, what? In my mind, I'm like, if it's $5,000, I might do it, right? And this guy has the audacity to say, now the individual coaching is $50,000. Now, I'm not going to recommend that for you. The 1 year is $25,000, and for the first 90 days, it's $15,000. And this is AFL. You can look them up, right? Alcohol-free lifestyle. And I was like, man, dude, I don't know if I can do this right now. And he said, why do you think it's so expensive? And I said, I didn't say that. Did not say that. Sure enough, man, I was like, listen, man, I can hand you $5,000 right now. And I signed up. It was August 4th. I won't forget it. And I went right into the program. And again, it's virtual, and it's for entrepreneurs, because naturally it's like, it's a pretty penny, dude, And again, this is not a knock on the programs that are local. They all work, and to each their own. But I found a second family in that, and it was neuroscience based, okay? Neural pathways and how you can rewire the brain and whatever else. So it was a lot of education. It was hands-on. It was the support. It was the group. I took a liking to it, man, right? Needless to say, here I am 5 months alcohol-free. So big kudos to them, dude. And I feel like I do have a second coach. So now I've got a business coach. Now I've got a lifestyle coach, okay? You ever heard this, Lawrence, right? Hey, invest 10% of your income into your own personal development. Mm-hmm. Dude, I wrote this down in December. I was like, holy crap, I am, right? That moment where you look up and you're like, wow, dude. Mm-hmm. So never begrudge, the money that you spend on your own personal development. So I've got this clarity, man, which is like, what? I don't need another personal development seminar. I really like the space that I'm in. Let me sit in it and do some thinking and some writing and try to make some progress that way.
Yeah. So you give them the $5,000, you get into the virtual seminar, like coaching.
Yeah.
How is your wife taking everything? Because I'm sure she's excited about the transition, yes. But like, what is she seeing? Because I'm sure she's encouraging you. Like, yeah. What is her process as she's watching you develop?
This is what I'll say. 2 weeks into the program, I've got a dinner, client dinner. Okay, what usually happens at client dinners? Okay, and what might happen after the client dinner is over? Maybe you go and say, well, I'm going to catch the game. Okay, I went there, it was 6:30. I came home, it was 7:45. And dude, let me tell you, she has not hugged me that way in quite a long time. And we kind of looked at each other and we said, holy crap, this is working. It's a shift. That no longer appealed to me, right? There's a change that's happening inside. So that was a beautiful story, kind of in the early onset where we were like, man, we've got a chance with this thing. Yeah.
Now, what do you do on your own time, right? So obviously you're getting the coaching, but like, what are you doing personally to keep your mind in a positive state? Because I'm sure temptation is because I mean, you're meeting with clients, you're doing all these things. So how are you keeping yourself like mentally prepared for those exchanges?
Yeah, well, listen, the program, they know what they're doing. Right? And so, hey, here's a daily video. Here is Marco Polo, right? Which is kind of like you can send quick videos to one another. So they kind of put you in this pod. Dude, it totally feels like a science experiment. They put you like in this pod, which is just a group, and it's like you and 30 other people. Dude, they're crushing it. There's like a bunch of people like in there's 4 of these pods. So you do the math.
Yeah.
Quick,
you
right?
got over 120 people there.
Come on now, dude. It's a nice business model, huh?
Mm-hmm.
But dude, there are folks just like you around the country, and everyone's sharing a little bit of how they're doing. And we're all kind of building each other up. We're all in it together, trying to get to 90 days. dude, when I tell you it's like a second family, right? And you don't want to let the other person down. And then there's a daily call, 90-minute call. So you're entrenched. You are entrenched, and you're starting to shift away from, I can't drink, to I get to live alcohol free. And that shift, man, is a beautiful thing. So I owe it to the program. They've got a great little model set up.
It's interesting you say this because I was someone who smoked a lot of weed before.
Yeah.
And I've just gone through the phase of like I smoke once a week,
Yes.
one time.
Yes.
And to see the change of like just being around my family more instead of like being in a room smoking off by myself for
sure.
God knows how long and then coming out reeking of it, just see, you know what I mean? Like, so as you say this, I'm like, bro, like I get it. Like, it's not the same, but it is in the sense of like the reaction you get from others is completely wholesome when they realize you're you and you're not a substance version of yourself, you know? So for those 90-minute calls or those, you know, those Marco Polo moments that you're having, is there a certain story or something you've heard that really connects you to the group or someone? Not necessarily that you have to share like what you might have heard, but like just the connections you've built. Like if you could share a little bit about that.
You know, it's really, hey, here's the subject matter, right, that we're discussing, and people's raw shares. You know, more is caught than taught. I mean, I firmly believe that. So you can talk my face off all day and show me these slides, but man, what that member just shared really resonated and struck a chord with me, and that's the lasting memory. So you do that times 90 in the first 90 days? I mean, you've got some momentum, man. So I just think it's everyone's ability to be raw, share how they're really feeling, and then we quickly realize, like, wow, we're not alone, right? You know, there's other folks that feel just like me, and you kind of make this instant connection. So the opposite, you know, they say in this group here, the opposite of addiction is connection, yeah? And listen, man, it's now referred to as alcohol use disorder, right? They don't like to say alcoholism anymore or anything like that. Alcohol use disorder, like a spectrum, hey, Lawrence? So I don't know, you know, it's like it's still all very new to me, and I'm learning a lot. And but I know this. Really like my life right now.
Nice.
Yeah, alcohol free is the way to go, man.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you, like, so for myself, the reason I would smoke or smoked more than before was because I would find myself in this position of I couldn't get enough from the day that made me feel good about myself. And I would almost be looking for something to kind of take me away from that feeling.
Yeah.
And now I find myself being able to do it where like it's more, I don't know, it's gonna sound silly, but like it was fun in the beginning when you first do it, you know, it was a fun thing. And like it feels fun again to do it, but not in a way where like I need to do it to have that fun. So like for yourself, like how did you fall into it? And now that you're out of it, what advice would you give to someone who's going through it?
Gosh, man. I mean, you know, I think moderation is a myth, right? Listen, God bless them. There's some folks that can do it, right? And amazing. Or they don't like the taste, or they say, you know, I can really have one and that's it. And it's a slippery slope, okay? And kind of what I've learned is these neural pathways, man, when they fire, these pleasure sensors, okay, that becomes ingrained. And it's like almost like these habits, man. Oh, when I go out, oh, I watch football and I eat wings and I drink. And it's this ritual. And it takes a lot to stand up and say, you know what, I don't like this behavior. And what am I always doing? And how much time goes by? And how much is it costing me? What's the real cost? So, you know, I might go off on a little bit of a tangent here with this, right? Because it's like, withdrawals are real, man. You may not know it, or you think you waking up groggy, or you think you being angry in traffic might just be that, but it could be that you're going through withdrawals. And so then where is the line? What really needs to happen? And that can look scary and challenging, because you feel like maybe you're missing out on some fun, Lawrence, or you can't picture a world completely without it, because you're like, well, but but music's not going to sound the same, and the food's not going to taste as good, and my friends aren't going to like me anymore. I'm not going to be social. You know, I need it to be social. These are all lies. So again, listen, it's up to you to decide it's a problem. It serves a lot of people, and who am I to say? So, but if you even had a shadow of a doubt that maybe this is not serving me anymore, I think that's worth exploring. That's what I'd say.
Right. So now I'm going to kind of jump to a whole different section.
Please.
You know?
You get
Talking
deep with
about
this.
kind of how, I'm a fan of this stuff. You know, I could talk that alone, this whole thing, but I did send you some stuff, so I want to make sure
Go
I kind
for
of,
it,
you know.
go for it, yeah.
Now, did you grow up, like, were you an only child? Did you have siblings? Like, how were you raised in terms of, you know, watching your mom work, having that injury?
Yeah.
Like, how did all that kind of develop for you? And what lessons did you learn as you were younger that you feel are key for your development now?
Yeah, dude, listen, I mean, these folks, you know, I say, you know, what did I fill out on the test in school when they said, what is your nationality, right? Because they didn't have Pakistani on there, right? But they did have Asian, and so I would mark Asian because I'm from the continent of Asia, I suppose. But listen, I'm a middle of 8, okay? And, you know, my dad did marry twice, but so big household growing up, a lot of mouths to feed. You know, dad worked hard, mom worked hard, right? Weren't around a lot because they certainly wanted to. But I learned not just work ethic, but this entrepreneurial spirit. It really does run deep. And I can say this because I'm brown, but brown people, man, like it runs deep. They all want to own their own business, or they all want to make it. And so, you know, listen, I've gotten a huge opportunity just being here in the United States, man. I'm not one of these folks. I mean, listen, the country has its flaws, but at the end of the day, man,
I love this country,
it's
man.
a really
Yeah,
good place to live,
yeah.
right? So if you lose sight of that, then my gosh, I mean, I empathize for you, honestly, because it can't get much better than it does get here in terms of safety and opportunity-wise, right? So I won't expand on that, but yeah, it was a busy household. You know, you really kind of had to fend for yourself a little bit. I mean, we were all a pretty close bunch. But mom and dad, I mean, just in watching them, it was like, man, it takes effort, and if you make the effort, you can get there. You can have some success.
I wholeheartedly agree about the opportunity that sits in front of people who live in this country,
Yeah.
and sometimes they miss it.
Yeah.
Because when you say it's ingrained in you because of where you grew up and who you grew up with in
Yeah.
terms of wanting to be entrepreneurial. So I relate to that because my dad came here for that.
Yeah.
So he was born in Greece, raised in Greece.
Yes.
I was born here when he came here. He came in through Canada. So like I was a resident, but he was not.
Yes.
So the very first business he owned, we lived inside of. It was a pizzeria, and we
Yeah.
lived on the floor.
Oh.
You know, and we took showers in the 3-bay sinks in the back.
Come on,
And then we
Lawrence.
would go to school from the restaurant and come back, and people were like, why do all your clothes smell like pizza? Why do you know, I was an outcast early on.
Yeah.
So when you say the opportunity, I feel like most people who live here and grew up just with a little bit more, not so much, you know, like middle class,
Yeah.
but if you grew up here, you miss what it has available to you
Yeah.
because you didn't start with less than what the average person here has.
No, that's a fair
Yeah.
point.
I talk to my daughter. I have a 17-year-old daughter, and then
Yes.
my son is 7. And my daughter is always kind of like, she's got her first job and she's making money, and you know, we talk to her about saving and all that stuff, and she's buying all these things. And anytime I try to share any of these stories with her, she gives me this like, oh, my poor me story again, you know, like one of those. And I'm like, you don't understand it because you get to keep your money.
Yes.
You don't, you have a bed, you have a room, you have these capabilities to feel like I'm fine. But there's so many people who don't have that.
Yes.
You know, so to hear you say I'm the middle of 8, like I was 4, I was in the middle of 4. So you say you're in the middle of 8, I'm like, yo, this guy was fighting for his life in between all those siblings. So now looking at your siblings, what do you think you've picked up from each of them being in that middle? That like, are you more patient because you were in the middle and you had to take, you know, you had the older siblings, you had the younger siblings? Like, what traits do you think developed you to be like the way you are in terms of family-based traits?
You know, there's something to this of when you were born. So, having been born in '86, I feel like it's the best of both worlds, right? In that you get that from your mom and dad because you grew up with VHS and whatever else, and the TV was a privilege, right? It wasn't just always on. And at the same time, we grew up with computers, right? And so we're tech savvy enough, and social media, right? We had a MySpace, did we not? So it's like this perfect blend of the two worlds. So I can see that in my siblings, right? Where they're maybe my oldest sister, a little bit more authentic with where we came from, and to my youngest, who are real millennial Gen Z, right? Like if you're born 96 to 99, like you're not really a millennial anymore, man. You feel like you're Gen Z. So to see that stark difference, but then also understand that hey, you need to pull from both cups to really talk to most people that you're going to come across to, right? So I guess the biggest thing that I learned is how to really interact with different personalities, depending on, honestly, when you're born. Yeah.
Now, as you look at your family, you look at you're across the street from your mom, your mom,
Yes.
you're across the street from
Yes.
your mom. So the kids get to be around her. I would assume they go over when you need a quiet moment or things like that, or maybe they just love being there because they get everything they want when they're there. How does it feel now to be in the position you are, where you've had the renovation, you have the family, you're now sitting back as a father and looking at everything. What does that feel like to you? Like, remove business aside and look at just your kids and your wife.
Yes.
Like, what are you most proud of when it comes to having your family?
Yeah. Lawrence, it's very satisfying. That would be the word that I would use. Even as much as I talk about wanting some peace back this year financially, really in the form of money in the bank, I've got a lot of peace. That building I lived in. So I didn't move very far. How's that?
Yeah.
Okay. And I grew up on this street. More than 30 years on this street. So to see that home, which is the gem of the neighborhood, it's a double lot, 4-car garage. I mean, you name it, right? I went from parking on the street to having a 4-car garage. Okay. So guess who's spoiled? But it is extremely satisfying to wake up, king of your castle, to know that your family's taken care of, that they have the space they need to flourish, and that you have the influence of your parents who are so wise, right? It's like, man, you want to make your life instantly easier? Please just forgive your mom and dad for whatever grudge you're holding. You will wake up enjoying life so much more. I mean, the way that I speak with my mom now, man, it's awesome. Like, we're not on top of each other. So, like, our relationship has grown, right? And she's not that far, right? She can come over anytime she wants. I can come over anytime I want. But, like, we've got this really sweet relationship now where our communication has significantly improved. So, yeah.
So how do you, because I find, when I look at my kids, I sometimes want to instill certain thoughts and beliefs into them. And I sometimes struggle because I'm not the cool dad in their eyes, like I'm just dad and, that type of deal. So for yourself, how do you instill the beliefs you have about the opportunities and, what they can achieve into your kids?
Oh, man, Lawrence, it's a great question. And, man, shout out to all the parents. It is the hardest form of leadership, parenting, okay? And I would say that I had a lot of growing up to do in terms of you can't talk to all your kids the same, right? They all need something different. They're all different people. So, man, today it is, and one of my son's AJ's teachers said this to me in the 2nd grade, and I was just like, whatever. But she was like, hey, high praise, high praise, high praise. She would say it just like that. And 10 years later, she was so right. Man, our job is just to build them up, right? The gift of self-esteem, Lawrence. Like, we're all smart in our own right. We're all good at certain things. We got our gifts and abilities. And so, yeah, you want to teach them to be hard workers, which means, there's a certain level of effort that's required, right? But if you can't do it in a way where you give them praise often, these are little cuts we're giving them. These are little bruises. You and I both have them from our childhood. And listen, again, forgive them. They didn't know any better. But now it's our job as we're educated, we've got to know how to talk to our kids. And it doesn't mean that you're always letting them slide. On the contrary. But if I punish them with a smile on my face and I tell them why I'm doing it, and then the next day I come and I comfort them and I say, hey buddy, how you doing? Come on, man, that's going to go a long way. So at the end of the day, I think we got to be very careful with our tongue, because again, it can be like these little cuts that we're giving them and we don't know how deep they're cutting. And then outside of that, I think helping them with their self-esteem, I think that's the way to go. Everything else I feel like falls into place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's well said, man. I ask because you're saying things that, like, when it comes to the parent stuff, my dad passed away and we did not have good terms.
Yeah.
And it was always in my mind, like, eventually we'll be good again.
Yeah.
And then it happened and it wasn't good.
Yes.
So it sits as a sore spot
Yes.
for me.
Yes.
So when you talk about your kids and, high praise, high self-esteem, building their self-esteem, it's refreshing to hear,
Yeah.
because that wasn't what I grew up with, similar to how you're saying, like, forgive your parents. So to kind of go off that, like, at what point did you know you had to forgive your parents, and how did you go about doing it? Because I feel like everybody has a different scenario with their parents and how it played out.
Yeah.
But, like, for yourself, what got you to think that way?
Yeah. Lawrence, what is the point of all the personal development if you can't improve your relationships? What is the effing point? So eventually, all of these seminars that I went to, how I was taught to think or what questions to ask, the tears that you shed, it's to improve your life, and it's not just financial. And it is easier when you have success because you're less dependent, and it does give you a little bit of space to say, all right, you know what, I've got some financial stability, and where else has my life gone wrong? Where I can fix it a little bit, right? Personal, financial, spiritual. So again, it's like if you're content within yourself and you have some, by the way, what's success? If a guy wants to own a farm and wants to have chickens and cows and he goes and does that, he is a smashing success. Is that fair?
Yeah.
So this image, whatever you get, whatever I get of success, that's not what it is, right? It's someone who's doing what they are meant to and supposed to do, okay? So, so it's just like the personal development at some point has to take hold. And if it's not, then you got to ask a serious question and look in the mirror like, what the hell am I doing?
Right.
So I think as you age is beautiful in that way, and you go through your trials and tribulations with your kids, you're like, man, this wasn't that easy. And, I should let them know how I'm feeling, and at the end of the day, to have the courage. And I started with personal notes. It was hard for me to look my parents in the face and have these conversations. If we weren't the most lovey-dovey in that way growing up, but I started with personal notes. I would write my mom a note, and then my mom would say hey, that made me cry, right? Or I knew that I wrote this note to my dad that it was going to touch him, but he never said a word about it. He never said he got it. He never said thank you, but I know he got it. And then next thing you know, our relationship's a little bit better. I wonder why, right? So I guess a wise man once said, never fail to say it. Don't fail to say it. Say it.
Right.
All right, well, how are we doing on time?
I was about to ask you the last question because I was going to wrap it up on you. We got 2 minutes left, so I got
Cool.
you. Yeah.
Well, what time is it in general?
Right now it is 6:05.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
I got a 6:30.
Yeah.
Good. You're good.
So to kind of wrap it up, this is always my favorite question to ask, and this is what I asked Rob when I went over and talked to him that night, and it's absolutely one of my favorite, and it's like the one I always make sure that if I talk to somebody who I feel like they have gems, I need to ask them. So, and maybe you've already said it, but I want to make sure I ask it this way. So, if you could only take one lesson in the 38 years that you've been born, and you had to go back to the very beginning of everything, and start all over, and you could only have this one lesson as your foundation, what would that lesson be so that you could get back to where you feel like you're achieving what you're meant to achieve?
You got me stumped on this one here for a second, man. And if I may, I want to hear you say it one more time. Ask the question one more time.
If you had one lesson
Yeah.
and you could only take with you at the very beginning and build your foundation to get back to where you are today,
Yeah.
what would that lesson be?
You know, it's really easy to be casual. You know, we think we have an infinite number of sunrises and sunsets. And I know this sounds deep, but it just, you know, too many days go by that are the same. And we're so casual, you know, and we think we're going to get up the next day and things are going to be okay. You know, the biggest lessons I've learned are from or examples of what not to do. And inevitably we have to go through it ourselves, right? We don't just get it. We have to go through the hardships. So if there was a lesson that I could take back, it was not to be so casual with my relationships, casual with my money, right? Casual with my relationship with God. And gosh, how do you get it? Or how do you get it at an early age? I mean, some are so fortunate, and maybe it's good parents. And gosh knows that you and I are here today because we have good parents, right? But man, it was, and you know, it's like, oh, be intentional. And I don't know. I don't think that's the answer. I don't know the answer. But the word that comes to my mind when you ask that question, Lawrence, is casual. Not to be casual, you know, to wake up and maybe you do set the intention to say, hey, what am I meant to do today? And what's the most important thing? But, you know, drift is deadly. And when you're casual, you drift. And my hope is that you don't drift too far. And that, you know, the road and the work doesn't look as long or as painful as it does. So I don't know if that's a clear and concise answer, but drift and casual are some nasty words, man.
Right. I mean, I definitely understood what you just said now, and in terms of how you conveyed it is don't just wake up and let the day get away from you. Really have some form of am I pursuing what would fulfill me?
Yeah.
You know, that's what I guess I really grabbed from that, and it's fun getting, like, I'll be honest with you, like, I really enjoyed how you just ended that. Like, I maybe I can't communicate it in the way that I'm just like, yo, the way you just said that shit, like, it fucking hit me. So I appreciate the hell out of it. So just to wrap it up, Sabbor,
hey,
thank you so much for your time, man. I genuinely appreciate it. Make sure you check him out, Sabbor Sheik Real Estate. This is the guy you want to contact when you are you just in like Boston area?
Hey,
like,
baby.
where, how do...
I help people buy and sell homes in the greater Boston area.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Talk to y'all later. Peace.